This presentation is going to be to look at additional supports to provide history students in the secondary learning environment and looking at the four main strategies of supporting these students with diverse learning needs, backgrounds, and then pairing those recommendations to professionals in the field that have been proven to be successful at implementing various strategies. So, taking a look at Susquehanna Middle School, located in central Pennsylvania, about 30 minutes outside of Harrisburg, a very diverse socioeconomic status amongst the families who reside within the school district and the school specifically. Some students come from families that have parents, guardians that are lawyers, doctors, engineers, versus some other students that have families or parents, guardians that are unemployed, homeless, low paying jobs, etc., and a pretty high economically disadvantaged group of students within the middle school itself. And then specifically looking at the classroom and the two students that we're going to use as an example, we have John, who in eighth grade is at a first grade reading level, and then Sue, who is an English language learner, who's at a level one, which is the lowest English language learner designation that can be given for a student. And when looking at the content specifically of early American history, using a lot of primary and secondary sources. So taking those grade level readings, sometimes they're a little bit above grade level when looking at letters, diaries, journals, entries, etc., that have language that's a little bit more advanced than eighth grade, and getting the students to analyze, interpret, and connect those sources to what is being learned in the classroom. So taking the two students that John and Sue, we're going to use the pseudonyms John and Sue for protection of privacy, and how do we get those students to be bought in more and engage more with the learning that is taking place and the content that they're learning, and how they're going to be able to apply that. So looking at the four strategies of assessment using cognitive, metacognitive, explicit instruction, and engagement are the four areas that we're going to focus on. A major area that's always talked about is assessment, so tests, quizzes, progress monitoring, etc. So using those assessments to your advantage. For instance, let's say for John at the first grade reading level, so assessing the understanding of the student, of where they're at currently, and what can we do to improve upon what is being taught, or in the manner in which it's being taught. And that really comes down to curriculum-based measurements, or basically standardized progress monitoring system, which gives educators the ability to analyze instructional practices and make adjustments as necessary. So looking at identifying the problem of John at a first grade reading level, gathering the data, developing and implementing a plan to meet him where he's at, and then monitor and evaluate that plan as we progress. Maybe some adjustments need to be made, or maybe we can determine what the next steps are going to be for that student. If we're looking at the cognitive and metacognitive abilities, so the cognitive skills of learning and performing, so solving math word problems, knowing how to collaborate with peers, student attentiveness, those are something that Sue could probably benefit from, being an English language learner. Not something that she would get out of a lot more of the content, considering that the language is difficult, but things like knowing how to collaborate with peers, and then the metacognitive of how and when to apply that ability. So maybe looking at things using self-regulated strategy development, which is an instructional technique to help students focus on planning and organizing argument-based responses to document-based primary source questions in social studies. So breaking them down into different stages might help a student like John, or might help a student like Sue. So looking at building the background knowledge, discussing what we were talking about, considering the grade level that they're at, or the reading and the writing level that they're at, modeling it and showing them exactly how it should be done and what they need to include, memorizing, supporting, and then allowing them to give you their independent performance to demonstrate the knowledge of what they have learned. Explicit instruction is a very key category when it comes to English language learners. So given a step-by-step demonstration using a very clear and concise language, matches the audience or the grade level. Also pairs with using pictures. If you have an English language learner like Sue, who's at a grade 1 level, using language that the student will understand, then pairing that with using images that they can relate to, that they can see a word match up to a picture, helps them differentiate between what is being said and what they can actually visually see, helps with the memorization. So looking at for reading comprehension, so reading and exploring all the text features, stopping and processing unfamiliar vocab, complex ideas, thinking about and reflecting on the text, asking, vocalizing questions, commenting something that they might not understand, connecting new information and prior knowledge. And then the last one, very critical, is the student engagement. A lot of students feel that social studies is a very boring subject, not as engaging compared to STEM, math, and science, other content areas. So finding ways to engage the students in the content that they feel is more hands-on. So using things called brain-friendly teaching structures. So things like rally robins, where students take turns with one another answering teacher-posed questions. These can all be great ways to review before a test, or maybe just to check for understanding. And all these don't come without barriers and limitations. So looking at, well, how can I best utilize the time if I'm very constrained on time in the class or don't have enough time for planning, etc. Maybe using assessments that are pre-created or very small, short assessments could be something for time constraints. If you're dealing with time constraints, peer collaboration is a great way that kind of takes the workload off of the teacher. In the 21st century, we have a ton of great resources, especially AI is a great resource as of lately. So something that you can use that's free, doesn't cost you anything, doesn't cost the district anything, things that you can just research and do on your own. And the last thing is just professional development. So doing your own research, seeing what's out there. How can I benefit my students the best? What is going to be the best strategy for my group of students? And that's going to change based on each year. One year's might be different than the next year. So looking at those strategies and how they're going to be best for that specific group of students. And then looking at future research, the main focus is looking at technology resources that gives all students an inclusive experience in the classroom. For example, Sue being the English language learner that has a very low level of English and being put into an 8th grade social studies classroom. What is technology going to do for that student to best feel that they are inclusive in the learning environment? And really just summarizing everything and all the strategies and many more strategies that are out there to help the students create better opportunities for these students, that not only the present students, but also in the future, and to help them learn and grow in an always changing learning environment. These students are now being brought into a world that requires problem solving and critical thinking skills that uses very little memorization of facts, but more applying what they know about the knowledge and using that knowledge to come up with answers and solutions to these problems. Is really just the summarization and the cumulative idea of all of these different strategies put together.